Following on from our previous video, today I will be bringing you the top 5 insane moments from season 1 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, these moments may not be the most badass or epic moments, but are definitely the most crazy when we first see them happening on screen. Starting with number 5, Jogo burning the innocent civilians in the restaurant in episode 6. This is what I'm talking about in terms of insanity. Jogo, being the evil curse that he is, ends up burning all those innocent people one by one in the restaurant as him and Kenjaku are discussing their plan in sealing Gojo away in the prison room. The fact that gets me is that Kenjaku himself says in this moment that he wishes Jogo wouldn't make such a scene. You know it's bad when the main villain of the series is saying that Jogo should calm down in this moment. All of these people came into the restaurant innocently, either working as a waiter or a customer waiting to eat at this restaurant, but got burnt alive because Jogo wanted to. The scene of them burning as we see their skeletons and their flesh and skin disintegrating was something you would see in a classic horror film, and that's the great build-up this moment was for Jogo. It made him out like this big bad horror movie villain, just lurking to catch their prey in the dark as he sets his sights on Gojo, which made it more sweet when we see in the very next episode Gojo absolutely schools him and makes him look like a joke. Number 4, Mahito touches Sukunas Soul. This moment was more from Sukuna's end than Mahito. I mean, don't get me wrong, Mahito touching Sukuna's soul the second time after he got warned by Sukuna is already insane enough. It's the way Sukuna carries himself in these scenes that makes it one of those insane moments in the series. The first time Mahito touched Sukuna's soul, Sukuna actually allowed it. He lay him off with a warning, and the reasoning for this was because him and Mahito were laughing at Yuji after seeing Yuji's reaction towards Junpei and his death, which I find unbelievable and shows how much he truly hates Yuji. He's letting Mahito live, all because he was laughing at Yuji. That speaks volume to Sukuna's hate towards Yuji. But then straight after, in the next attempt by Mahito, Sukuna does slice him and probably would have killed him if not for Yuji's interference. I have to give credit to the voice acting of Sukuna's voice actor. It's literally the perfect voice for the king of all curses. He starts off with a high tone when he says that he will give Mahito one chance. But then when he says to him to know his place and calls him a fool, the tone changes completely. His voice goes lower, matching Sukuna's head tilting lower as the lower part of his face you could see on screen, but his eyes, you couldn't see them because of the shadow. Everything was great in terms of the tone and the threatening nature of Sukuna being on display against a very powerful cursed spirit in Mahito. Number 3, Megami's domain expansion in episode 23. Megami unleashed his own domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden, despite being only in the first year of Jujutsu High, which shows how much potential he has as a character. He managed to defeat the special grade curse with his domain, but the crazy thing is, the domain was still incomplete. We can now see what Sukuna sees. The ridiculous potential Megumi has is insane, and it's being hinted that he may even end up battling it out with Gojo, considering both of their families being intense rivals over the years. But this moment captures what I mean by an insane moment. Megumi, the cool, calm, collected Megami, the silent introvert, just goes batshit nuts when he unleashed Chimera Shadow Garden. He is smiling throughout, and it's like he is a different person to what he was before in this brief moment. I'm seeing a trend with this actually, because Gojo in the Gojo past arc, when he has his final battle against a certain assassin, when he also taps into his potential by using Hollow Purple for the first time, when you read that chapter, he looks insane, and he even says, "Throughout the heavens and the earth, I alone am the honored one." You would think he was the villain if you just randomly read this chapter without any previous knowledge on what's been happening in the story so far. But both Gojo and Megami had to completely lose themselves in order to defeat their opponents. This is what Akutami does. In normal shonens over the years, when one of the main characters gets a power boost or learns a new attack that defeats the enemy they are currently fighting, the hero would usually be calm and collected. From the top of my head, when Gohan transformed into Super Saiyan 2 for the first time, he was silent, stone cold as he dominated Cell in their fight. That silent demeanor is the norm for most shonen titles whenever a character gets a power boost or a new attack. But with Jujutsu Kaisen, it's the opposite. It seems you have to lose your mind in order to gain that power boost. as demonstrated by Megami and Gojo, which I like because it makes them feel more threatening with an element of them being unhinged, which makes you feel these characters are capable of both being a hero and a villain at the same time. And it's something different as well. Seeing our heroes fully go insane to defeat the cursed spirits makes the fight more entertaining and less predictable, because you know when a character goes silent mode and starts to dominate, that fight then is officially over, unless the villain uses some underhanded tactics. But with them going insane, you don't know whether that will backfire on them because we don't see it that often. These characters, in order to defeat these cursed spirits, and in this scenario, Megami, he was pushed so hard that he had to find the darkest part of himself and unleash that darkness to match the darkness of the special great curse. It's like you have to match insanity with insanity in order to fight these otherworldly beasts. Number 2 comes from episode 12 with Junpei's idol transformation. This episode is just one of the most saddest episodes of any show, and it all starts from the opening, where the opening actually lied to us, because Junpei is also in the opening. It made us believe that Junpei may actually end up being one of the main characters, but the poor guy died in this episode after being transformed by Mahito, who was using him all along. It's so messed up, man. You really feel for him, as he has been bullied for most of his life, and then the only person he has in his life, which is his mom, gets killed. And Mahito then turns his back on him and uses his idol transfiguration, which more or less kills what's left of Junpei. The guy lived a tragic life, and for him to then just be turned into another monster gives you the feeling of hopelessness for the situation that Yuji is in right now. I'm sad to what happened to Yuji, and I'm even more sad for the character of Junpei. But for the story, this was a good move, as the story allowed you to connect with the character that is not part of the main cast. He allowed you to connect with him and his life with his mom and school life, which wasn't the greatest, but he still was pushing through. He managed to make a friend with Yuji, but then this episode comes around and just kills the character you just got invested into. But it makes you want Yuji to kill Mahito even more, and it makes Mahito a serious antagonist along with Kenjaku and Sukuna. Sukuna will probably end up being an endgame villain, but the beginning of the series starting off with a villain like Mahito sets the bar so high already, because you hate him so much because of this one incident alone. But yeah, the show fooled us big time with the anime opening as well, which adds to the insanity and twist from this moment in this episode. And finally, number 1, episode 15, where Todo creates an entire backstory with him and Yuji being best friends. This moment is so surreal. My man Todo actually created his own slice of life anime with Yuji, and it all sparked after Yuji mentioned he loves Jennifer Lawrence, which created this insanity. Todo wants to ask Takada-chan out on a date, but she already is seeing someone, so Yuji is there to pick up the pieces and treats him to ramen. Even in his own dream he gets rejected, so that's another insane moment in its own right there. But the fact now Todo truly believes that Yuji and him are best friends from day one is my number 1 insane moment from season 1. Like, how do you explain this to someone who has never watched the series before? I mean, I know there's been theories that maybe Yuji has a memory altering ability, which could be the case, but what if there isn't? What if Todo became so happy with Yuji's answer that he became deluded and made a backstory which he wanted to believe was true, after potentially wanting to kill Yuji because he is Sukuna's vessel, and he has been instructed by his principal to now being his best friend with an entire slice of life anime backstory? I don't think there's an insane moment that tops this. If you feel there is a moment that is more insane from season 1, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to know what that is. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the Shaman Tribe.